I say to people, if you're worried about manipulation, then I believe you need to know this even more. The language patterns and hypnosis and telling a story that drops people into a state where then they're unconsciously accepting something that they wouldn't normally want to accept. The focus was on what it meant. And I actually said, because I was this, it means I'm also this.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily true, right?
Have you ever felt it? That something bigger is unfolding around you. That one connection that changed everything. I'm Greg Tomczyk, and each week we bring you the stories of connection that create real change. Now let's dive into this week's episode. Megan Blacksmith, I've been really excited to have you on the show, so welcome to the Connected Experience.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So where I want to start is, do you believe people can actually transform?
Well, I sure hope so, or I would be out of a job.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, 1,000%, because I have, my husband has, and I see people completely transform from one identity to another on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And I think that the only struggle is it often takes people getting down to that rock bottom moment, or that just that thing that they really, really don't want to happen starts to happen. And that's when people are willing and ready. So my goal is actually to help people decide to transform before that point. Like, what if we just proactively said, I'm going to keep growing as a human. I'm going to keep growing forever. I believe that's what we're here to do. So what if we chose to do that instead of waiting till we get hit with the full boulder moment?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talk a lot on this show about cognitive dissonance and people knowing they need to do something but still don't do it. What have you seen from your practice in helping people decide to transform before that rock bottom, or the moment that forces them to have to transform?
That helps them decide to transform ahead of time? What happens is usually there's something in their life, maybe in one area of life, that starts to feel really out of balance or really shaky. And if we can use that one area to recognize that, okay, if this were to expand to every area of your life, where would that lead? Because you're like, oh, this is just a small problem. And I'm like, what if this small problem were now in your relationship and now in your business and now with your children? And right. So now expanding that out to seeing, how we do one thing is how we do everything. I'm sure you've heard that one. So when we start to get a little wobbly or have things go out of balance in one area, I can predict. I am very good at patterns. That's what I'm good at seeing. I'm like, I can predict what's going to happen for you. And I don't want to have to lean into your pain, but helping someone actually see the pain, right? Visualization is powerful, and I do it all the time. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we actually need to see what's going to happen if we don't change. Yeah. Sometimes we need to drop into that visualization of, if I don't do anything, if I stay, people will say, well, I'll just be in the same place in a year. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, you won't. You will have a whole year of lost opportunity cost. You will have a whole year of identity shift that could have been, that's not. And you know how much can happen in a year. Like you could be a completely different person. I have been a completely different person after one rock bottom that brought me to what I do now. Really, that's what happened for me. It was a very rock bottom moment with my husband, who was in the military and needed a coping mechanism and went to alcohol.
Yeah.
And he openly talks about this. It's he's been on my podcast. So he's very open about how much that really took him out of life and how much he was leaning on it to the degree I didn't even know. And in that moment where we realized, oh, this is an actual problem. He's now making decisions outside of our marriage that are not good. He's making choices and decisions. And I said, you need to go to rehab. Mm-hmm. And I thought he was going to fight me on it. Like I said, you're an alcoholic, because I was really, really pissed about some other, affairs. Mm-hmm. And he looked at me and said, you're right. You don't even know how bad it is. He's like, that bottle you see in the garbage, that's the decoy bottle.
Mm-hmm.
There's 5 others that have been consumed between the last few days. So it was so bad that such drastic measures had to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Within 24 hours, we had him on a plane, 30 days of rehab. And it led me to finding everything I do now. Neurolinguistic programming, hypnosis. He ended up going to that. We have a completely different life than that path we were on. Talk about transformation.
Yeah.
And I can't, not that I want that moment for people, but I share my story so that I can say, don't wait for that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't wait for that. That's painful. Learn from my mistakes. And then what we can do is we can actually get you the tools and resources to get to the new place, even without having had that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's a little bit of threat modeling or risk modeling of what could be. And I think a lot of people avoid that because they think of the negativity, that the negative path they're going down. But it's important to recognize how a small thing could really grow into a big thing. And in your experience, I think a lot of people listening in, they get the intuition, the gut feeling that something could grow, but they avoid it or they use vices. So I'm curious what you would say to somebody who may currently be in that same situation that your husband was in and maybe does not have the support of somebody like yourself to say, we need to do something about this. And they're just going deeper and deeper down that hole because either somebody doesn't notice it or somebody doesn't want to rock the cage per se of their life to, get too involved.
Yeah, my husband said that if he hadn't come home to me after that 30 days and had the support at home of me also being willing to look at my own codependency, my own patterns of why did I let this go on for 10 years, right? This thing that I pretended to not know, but I did know. So I dug deep as well. And without that, it is so much harder to do unless you actively go find that support, because it might not be your family and it might not be the people right around you that you know now. Although there are people, lots of people who've done this and do this. I was just in an airplane recently to Dallas, and I was sitting next to a man who's currently still in the military, and I felt like I was sitting next to my husband from 10 years ago.
Wow.
And he was openly telling me, yeah, I drink way too much. Yeah, oh, it's total coping mechanism. He's like, I don't know. Do you think it's a problem? I'm like, if you're asking a random woman on an airplane if it's a problem, this might be a problem. And we got talking a lot about the struggles, his health struggles of his daughters and real life things that are very stressful in this coping mechanism. And he really wanted, I could tell he wanted to change. And I also knew 100% he was not ready. I knew there wasn't any action to be taken. You could just hear in the language, right? Language will tell so much about somebody's state or their model of the world and where they are on that readiness for change. He wasn't ready because he even asked me, he said, you hypnotize people? I said, yes. He said, can you do that now? And I said, well, unfortunately, like, I don't want to call you out, but you have been drinking, haven't you? He smelled, I mean, it was oozing out of his. He said, no. And I just paused for a minute. I looked at him. He's like, okay, maybe, maybe I'm drinking right now.
He was lying to himself as well.
Yeah. And this was a 10 a.m. flight.
Yeah. And
I said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to hypnotize someone who's been drinking. And he was so mad at himself, right? This opportunity, because he said, I've always really wanted to be hypnotized. But we got talking. By the end of the flight, we got talking about just the idea of the basics of thinking about actually what he wants. Because he kept saying his end destination was not Dallas. He was flying through to San Diego. And he kept saying, I was ending in Dallas, but he wasn't. He kept saying, I'm going to get stuck in Dallas tonight. I always get stuck in Dallas. And I said, well, maybe. I let it go a few times. And he said it 4 more times. I'm like, okay, I can't let this go anymore. I said, if you want to get stop getting stuck in Dallas, you might want to stop saying that. And he looked at me like, you don't think I have that much power, do you? I absolutely believe you do. And the way I see the world and what I see people do all the time with what they put out and what they get back, I'm like, yes, I do believe that. And then I told the baseball metaphor, the one I told you right before this.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I said, if you were to get up to bat, if you're a professional baseball player, you're to get up to bat and you know you struck out the last time, what are you thinking? Are you thinking, well, my odds are pretty low. You know, I'm not going to hit every one. I said, no, you're getting up with the full certainty that you are going to hit the ball. I said, even though you know the statistics, I'm like, I believe you. You've actually been stuck in Dallas 5 times. I know that's true. I'm not saying it's not true. And you have to get up to bat with full delusion that you are going to knock this one out of the park. And he and the guy next to him, they're probably mocking me, but they're like, the rest of the flight, they're like, we're going to make it home. We're going to make it to Dallas tonight. Everything's working out. And I was like, there you go. Perfect. It was just a really cool full circle moment. And he actually said, you know what? I might be interested in getting your support by the end. There was a little opening.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure he's there. And there was just a little opening of, oh, there's another way to think.
But sometimes all we need is that just small curiosity that opens up to maybe this negative component of my life could grow into something way bigger versus the denial. Because I think when we feel pain and we feel something that we haven't felt before, our body trying to tell us something or the outside environment, we tend to push it off or push it down. That's the definition of depression at the end of the day.
Yes.
So a little bit into the program, because it sounds like that story was, his program was completely off track. He had the feeling that he wanted to change, but his program, the tape in his brain kept telling him, you know, you're going to get stuck. You're not going to stop drinking because I'm going through hardship in my life. I'm curious what neuro-linguistic programming is not. So like a lot of people have their own preconceived notion about it, but like, what is it not?
What is it not? So in order to tell you what it's not, I maybe need to say what it is, because there are a lot of different preconceived notions. And I think, well, actually, I do know what it is not. It is not a tool to be taken lightly, because it is extremely powerful when you understand language and the mind at the level that neurolinguistic is really just modeling successful people. So it's another thing it is not. It's not a thing that was made up. It's not actually its own thing at all. It is the compilation of studying a bunch of different people who did things really well, like a hypnotist who was amazing at his craft, or a family therapist, Virginia Satir. So it's the study of other people and the study of language, things we do naturally. People who are a great storyteller, they naturally do certain things. So they studied them and were like, what is the language pattern? What is the cadence? What was the tone? What was happening? And then pulled out those ingredients per se to say, now someone could learn this. So it's the idea, if someone has done something well, or you've done something well in another area of life, there's a strategy for that. There is a habit for that. There is a belief system for that. There's what you're seeing, hearing, feeling, thinking, saying to yourself, right? There's a way to elicit. I can elicit what you've done successfully and take it on as my own. And so with that means, it's also very important that this is in the hands of people who want to do good in the world. Because it is in the hands of lots of people.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And I say to people, if you're worried about manipulation, for example, which is a concern, then I believe you need to know this even more, because the language patterns and hypnosis and telling a story that drops people into a state where then they're unconsciously accepting something that they wouldn't normally want to accept, that's happening in media, in the news, in advertising, everywhere. So once you have awareness of the language, you can say, oh, no, thank you. Like, cancel, clear, delete. That's not something I actually want to drop into my unconscious mind. I want to have a filter up for things that actually match with me. Mm-hmm. So learning, you can learn the language so that you know what from the receiving end. And then 2, for all the people that I help, these are people who they have gifts. They're healers, they're helpers. Whether they're helping someone with their business or they're helping someone with their health, their relationships. These are the type of people who don't usually want to take a lot of money for their services. Mm-hmm. They're doing a lot of good in the world, and I want those people to have the belief system that they are worth receiving large sums of money for that, because their work is what changes structures. Their work could change school systems, prison systems. It could change really, really big structures if they could take on that leadership role. Mm-hmm. And the language and understanding, the second part of the neuro-linguistic programming, one is understanding what you believe, what your model is through language. And the second one is the ability to actually shift that at a subconscious level. So hypnosis is one of the processes, but using different techniques to actually say, okay, I am acting out that belief. I can see that I have lack of, there's not enough in the world, or will I lose my job? Will I get a new client? I can see I have that fear and pushing away from it. What do I really want to believe instead? Because I took on that belief. We're forming these beliefs before we're 7 years old. Yeah. So whose belief is it? Mm-hmm. Not really yours. I mean, it was whoever was around you and what you made it mean at that age, at 6.
Yeah. Wow.
What I made it mean that my brother got chosen first for the play and I wasn't in it. Mm-hmm. And I made that mean through my 6-year-old eyes that I am not good enough, or I should not speak up, or I shouldn't try. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because I now speak often and I do trainings. There's 7 days, right? I speak on stages a lot, and I was scared to death to speak. To the point that my high school teacher reached out to me recently, and she said, I'm seeing all these posts of you on stages and doing different things. And she said, and I just can't help to laugh. She said, because you were the girl who made sure that you were 4th in your grade so that you wouldn't have to give a speech.
Yeah.
Because the top 3 were speaking. Mm-hmm. She said, you actively sabotaged one of your grades to be 4th. And I had forgotten about that, but my fear of public speaking was so insane that to think now how much I've had to transform between then and now to actually love this, completely different world for me.
If you're leading a team or organization right now, you know connection is no longer optional. I help teams build trust, navigate uncertainty, and lead with clarity in a changing world. Through real stories and practical insight, your audience will leave more confident and ultimately more connected. To bring me in to speak, visit gregtomczyk.com/book to speak. That's gregtomczyk.com/book to speak. Now let's get back to the conversation. Yeah, I want to talk about what language to look for, because I think we want to attract positive language that shifts us into the right direction. But I'm curious of what to avoid, what you've learned that people should avoid, because there are negative forces using these hypnosis, NLP, for mental manipulation to get what they desire through the media and otherwise.
Yeah. So it's called the Milton model. That's the hypnotic language that we learn of. Actually, we go through every single pattern. And some of the things you'll hear are, when you think of things that put you into hypnosis, they're very chunked up, very vague. Like everyone knows, studies show, people think, right? There's these phrases that when you stop and think, what you would need to ask is, what study shows? Everyone knows. Who specifically knows? But what happens is when it's put into this vague category, it becomes accepted at an unconscious level. It's like, oh, well, everybody knows that this is what we're doing this week. And unless you know what questions to ask to uncover who is the everybody, What specific study are you talking about? Then you start to realize, oh, that was one guy in his basement doing one thing, or there was nobody. It was just this vague statement. But these are used all the time, and they put us right into trance.
Yeah.
There's words where, for example, when we say but, we immediately negate whatever we just said. So there will be a sentence and it's like, but. So we'll teach people whatever you're saying to use and instead of but, right? You're saying, this is really hard and I'm excited to be here. It has a completely different feel in the way it goes into the mind. Or phrases like, and that means. So if I say, I was a mechanical engineer before I changed into functional medicine. I've had quite a few jobs. So I was a mechanical engineer. And that means I'm really, really good at seeing patterns. And I'm really, really good at getting into the nitty gritty of how someone's mind works. So when I said that to you, the focus was on what it meant. And I actually said, because I was this, it means I'm also this.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily true, right?
Yeah.
Because I could say, because I'm here in your studio means I'm going to be a best-selling author, right? It's not necessarily true, but when you make two things, one thing mean another thing, it's usually accepted. And the resistance to the first thing I said, most people aren't questioning, well, was she a mechanical engineer? That kind of went right. I mean, I was, so it's not a lie, but it went right into the unconscious mind. Versus if I said, did you know I was a mechanical engineer? You might think, okay, why do I care? Or are you trying to show off, right? There might be a different thought. But when it's said before a statement like, and that means, it's going right in. So this can be used powerfully for you to tell the person, I do this podcasting, and that means I really care about helping transform the world, right? You can use it in a powerful way, or the statement could be, and that means something that is actually harming to people. So in every language pattern, there is the way it can be used positively, which is the way we're teaching people to help themselves transform and others. There's the way it could be negatively to trick people into getting what they want.
Right.
And then there's the way that people are using it on themselves to what we call put themselves into problem trance, to convince themselves that their problem is so big, they can't get out of it. And if a client is really, really good at problem trance, they can pull the coach right into to the point that the coach will be like, you're right, I don't know if I can help you. Have you ever met someone who's so good at making their problem so vivid and so detailed that you're starting to question if there is help for them?
Yeah. I think that happens a lot in talk therapy, I'm sure, where somebody brings so many big problems that the therapist, they're kind of blocked off.
Yeah, so I went to talk therapy after that incident with my husband, and I love it for so many reasons to a certain point. I love that I was heard, and I love that I talked through things that I got a lot out, and I started to understand my patterns. And then at that point, that is where NLP took over for me, because now it was like, okay, I see the pattern. I actually want to stop talking about the pattern, and I actually want to stop talking about the past, because the more I talked about it, the more I actually embedded it into my unconscious deeper. It's like, when you're upset about something and you call a friend and you choose a specific friend, right? The friends who are going to reframe you and get you in a positive place. And the friends who are going to be like, yeah, you're right. They're jerks, right? So we know who we call. So my business partner and I had a rule about venting to each other. We're like, we can have a certain amount of time, vent, but we don't want to be confirming to the other person, yes, people are mean to you, or yes, that was horrible, because now you're securing in more beliefs in that way. So instead, we want to be getting to the what is happening, what does our reality look like, but what do we actually want it to be? And that's where the subconscious work of you have this decision that was made at some point that you're not good with numbers, or you're not good business, or whatever the belief is, and what do you want it to be? And I actually take people back to the very first time. We do it in a hypnotic state, take them back to the point where they decided that, where they were 6 and they decided, I'm not that funny, I'm not worthy, whatever it is. And actually seeing from this higher perspective, from the wisdom you have now, what you're meant to learn from that. And they're gaining this wisdom of like, oh, my dad was just really tired. He was doing the best he could with the tools he had. Literally wasn't even about me. And you're reframing and rewiring until you get to such a strong belief that when you come back, float back into now on your timeline, you're taking that with you into the future. So the past changes the future, changes your now. And that's where the transformation kicks in.
I think about creating your own reality. There's other words, manifestation and things of that nature. How would you recommend people who have not been exposed to NLP or hypnosis? Can you hypnotize yourself?
Well, we do it all the time, but into things we don't want.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hypnosis. So for one, we're getting into a hypnotic state. It is just a natural brain state. So it's not, we don't think of, sometimes people get the image of, right, like you're going to be very sleepy and the stage hypnosis. Yeah. That's a very different thing. The people on the stage who get up and do cartwheels, those are people who wanted to get up and do cartwheels. If you are not a person who wants to do cartwheels on a stage, you will not be hypnotized into doing this. So there's some misconception. Yeah. Hypnosis you get when you're driving, when people get in that state of hypnosis, when you take a shower, when you scroll on your phone. So you're in that suggestible state. It's just how deep do you go? So knowing that we go in and out of that state naturally, now we can choose. You said, can you do it yourself? I mean, I create audios for myself all the time. I realized, so one of the ways that in order to become an NLP trainer, you go to trainers training and speakers training. It's an 18-day program. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done. Very intense, like trying to get you to be so strong that no matter what would happen, if something happened in a training room, that you can handle it. So they throw a lot of things at you and get you to calm your body, get in a good state, like respond. So it was just one thing after another while learning to speak. And there's a test at the end, and they give you 8 hours to do the test. It's closed book. So we had to memorize every single script that we teach and every single process that we teach so that you're writing it out. And it actually just takes you, the test is so long because it takes you so long to write out the answers. There were, I think, 84 questions. We knew ahead of time, though, what the questions were. So I created myself a hypnosis of every answer on the test. And it was an hour and a 40-minute audio. That's how long. I played it on my walks, and I played it every night. And so by the time I got to the test, I was writing so fast because I just wanted to get it out. I'm like, I have it. I knew I had every answer in my brain. I just had to get it out. And I think in about 2.5 hours, I was complete. And I got 100. There was extra credit. I got 104 on the test. Like, I knew every single answer. And I started to realize, oh, if that's why I know this so well, why not create that for my clients? So why not create a hypnosis for the thing they're trying to learn? So for example, I just did a metaphor class, and then I created a 20-minute hypnosis of me telling all the stories in a hypnotic state, all the different metaphors, so that then when they're on a client call or on an interview, that story will just pop into their head, like the one they need. Versus, so we go for unconscious competence, right? Where it's just so automatic that the words flow through you. You don't remember which pattern it is. You don't need to remember this is that clause and this is that pre-frame, but it just comes out at the perfect time. So I do believe we can use self-hypnosis, our own audios, things people create and record for us, to actually just program ourselves into either learning what we want or just being what we want.
Yeah, we have a lot of different roles, I feel like, in life. We have the personal and the family. We have the professional. We have our societal role and the impact we want to make there. I'm curious where you've seen this used most in those roles. Is it around money? Is it around, personal life? I'm sure it's different for everybody, but curious where you see hypnosis and the focus of NLP applied most in your work.
So we've had both scenarios. For example, someone will come to a training for personal reasons. So maybe they're really struggling emotionally. We had one woman, she's like, I just punched a hole through my wall after getting angry at my son. She's like, I didn't go near him. I went into a room by myself. But she's like, I actually have a hole in my wall and this is not okay. Like, I clearly need some tools to help me deal with my toddler. So she came for personal, just knowing she was reactive. I think people, when they feel like they're either really emotional, really reactive, they don't want to say the things they say. They're like, I want to be a kinder person, and it just comes out. So we'll have had people come in for the personal. Now, what's interesting about that, what has happened most of the time, is the people who come in for the personal then realize how much they're stopping themselves, for example, in their business, like how much of an upper limit they're putting on how much money they can make, or if they think they're an evil person for wanting more, or right, all of this societal programming around money. And in the process that we're doing, in the transformation, in the week-long process we're doing, you're doing every single exercise with a partner. And you end up doing so many that even though you're not working on your business specifically, you've shifted so much from your past that then people will leave and say, I just immediately went out and like fired somebody, or immediately went out and got new clients, because they're thinking differently. They're thinking clearer. It's like they had this parachute. They're just pulling this parachute around, not realizing how much drag is pulling them backwards, like this whole parachute every day. And we just went in and cut the cords, we cut the strings. And so they have this freedom to then bring it into other areas. Most of the people, though, that I attract are coming for their business. They either want to be a better coach, even if they're not a coach classically, but they have a team that they're essentially coaching to do a better job, or they're interacting, with their clients in a way they're trying to get a client to make change and make shifts. You can have the most amazing program or product, and if you can't get the people to actually use it and do it, it's useless, right? So they know that, they see that people have this resistance. They're like, I don't get it. I know if they would just do this, they'd have great results, but they won't do it. And so they'd find there's just different beliefs there of, well, if I change, am I going to lose my friends? What if I'm different? What if my partner no longer likes me because I've actually transformed beyond where they are? So they start to recognize that there's so much more to it, and have the tools to get that person on board, or get that person to at least be able to communicate, oh, I'm afraid of losing this. And also in business, a lot of people want to use for language and marketing, and having better skills to speak publicly, explain what they do, not get in their own way.
Yeah. The word that comes to my mind is fear. I think, how do we get people out of the fear state that is preventing them from making the change to get that parachute off of their back?
We basically spend the whole week. So, people talk about like the away from motivation, right? Like what you don't want, like the stick versus the carrot. Like, I don't want to be in poverty, to the what do we actually want, shifting to that towards motivation. And most of the people, when they first come into training, when I ask them, what do you want? They don't know.
Yeah.
And some of them do know and don't want to say it because they're afraid they'll get disappointed.
Yeah.
Some of them really don't know. They don't know who they really are or what they like. And some people do the opposite, where they set these really, really huge goals repeatedly, kind of knowing they won't hit them. And it's a way of beating themselves up. So there's all these different flavors, but we're spending the whole week trying to shift from away from what I don't want all the way to what I do want. And a bunch of different beliefs and values have to shift along the way to stop being totally, naturally we go away from pain. That's just the brain. It makes sense, right? Survival. So there's nothing wrong with it, but we have to actively pursue shifting to, but what do you want? Let's just pretend. Let's just imagine everything was great. What do you want? And start leading them in that direction.
Yeah. How important, we talked about the language component. How important is reading, or has reading been to your development and is now to the people that you're able to serve?
I am obsessed with reading. I think when you get used to reading to understand transformation, then you see the patterns in the language. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm really good at seeing people's patterns, is that I am just obsessed with transformation and learning. Because, once you learn one thing and then you hear another story, it layers on top of that first story, right? You had that realization, and then the next story helps you with that one. And then the next one helps you with that one. So it's kind of like, sometimes you don't really even realize what the first story was telling you until you get to the 10th. Then you're like, oh, that's what that meant? We'll have people, so in NLP, there's levels. There's practitioner training, master practitioner, and then trainer's training. And a lot of times when people get to the second master practitioner, they're like, that's why we did that at practitioner? Yeah. I'm like, I know, it's hard to explain why you're doing that until you're there. All I could say is just keep going. And I feel like that's what reading does for me. It's like the next little layer of, I'll add that into my brain so that when I see that in the real world, it helps me bring together another pattern. And I don't know if people are still reading as much, but I do think it's important.
Yeah, I think we're looking, the reading process almost helps you self-discover, whereas now with the tools that are at our fingertips and the searches you can do, you get the answer immediately. And one of the things a lot of our audience is bringing fear into is the AI conversation about AI replacing the brain. Do you think AI is going to replace the brain, or how should somebody navigate that?
I think that's quite scary.
It is, yeah.
I think it can be used so well together. So when we're using AI, in my opinion, when we're using AI to help us uncover something, but then you need to take it into your real life, because the embodied part of actually physically doing something, having a conversation, it's like you said, when you've owned companies or you've gone through a bunch of different things in your life, you learn from each of them. So you're not going to learn to that level from, you reading on AI, right? It's like that's not an embodied experience. There's knowledge, which you can get lots of at your fingertips, and then there's wisdom. Yeah. It's like my mentor always says, it's like knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Yeah. And wisdom is knowing not to put it in your fruit salad, right? So the lived part of it, like, don't want to learn to swim on AI, for example. Yeah. And I also, language and language patterns, you could go look up, I'm doing a course on advanced language patterns. You could go look them all up right now on AI. That doesn't mean you're going to have them come to the tip of your tongue when you're sitting with a client, unless you've sat and practiced in the practice room like we're going to do. Unless you have someone throw a concern or objection at you, and then you go, okay, what would I do here? The real life part of it has to be done. So I think one of the cool things, though, about AI is that it's really differentiating between the people who are still willing to do the hard human-y things. Like if you're willing to speak, not that I guess they could make a pretend AI, but if you're willing to, like speak on stages or put yourself out there, people will know, they know that it's you and they know that it's real. So it's actually helping differentiate from some of like the businesses who are just putting out courses and courses that are straight from AI. I have an amazing voice coach who talks about the 7 layers of sound in your voice.
Mm-hmm.
And she says that in the first 10 seconds, she's done a study on this, people can hear your subconscious beliefs, and they will decide in the first 10 seconds if they want to work with you or not.
Mm-hmm.
And you've barely said anything, right? Of content. 10 seconds, you've barely said anything. They're hearing your stories. They're hearing not just your stories, but they're hearing if what you say and your sound match. And they won't know why, but they'll go, don't really trust that person.
Yeah.
And that's what those AI videos do. You don't know why, but you know the sound is not the depth or the real. So I think we're becoming really good detectors of the BS, which is going to make it, I think it's just going to make the people who are willing to work on their own skills, their personal development, their speaking, their transforming, their coaching, they're going to stand out even more. So I feel like we can use it to advance, and then we have to really do the stuff that you can't do with AI.
The action. Yeah, it's almost reorganization of information. That's all AI is, and helping us get a better understanding of the strategy potentially, but it's not going to take action for us in most cases. Right.
It can't do the thing. Although when I was trying to think of new metaphors the other day, I was like, wow, this is a much easier way to start to get myself ideas versus just me sitting there with my paper and pencil. So it can help inspire ideas. And then, if you read it off the page, everyone's going to know that.
Yeah. Yeah, Megan, I was extremely excited to bring you on the show to talk about programming, because a lot of people that are in transition are, like you said, they're in the problem trance, which is the first time I've heard that. And I see that a lot in the worlds that I navigate. And when somebody comes to me asking for advice, most of the time that problem trance is what they're navigating. So I think they're going to get a lot of value just understanding that concept and how they can re-look at the language they're using and versus but, and some of those strategies that I think will help them change themselves, but also help them shift the people around them, which is we all want to make an impact and we want to put great things out in the world. But sometimes these programs that we're running prevent us from doing that. So I'm curious where folks can find you, where they can engage you, maybe for one of your events. What's the best way to get in contact?
So I am live in Virginia Beach, and I am doing actual 6-day certification trainings here. So it's NLP life coach model, and quantum time technique are the 3 certifications people leave with after that training. So I'm pretty active on Instagram at Blacksmith training, at Blacksmith_training or _co, and blacksmithtraining.com is where you can find me.
Excellent.
Yeah, I do monthly meetups here for anybody who's local. Please just come find me, and I'd love to connect.
Yep, we'll make sure all that's in the show notes. One of the ways we like to round out the conversation is, Megan, what does it mean to experience connection?
I love that question. I think the most important part of connection is being able to be quiet. And what I mean by that is that there's this super connection that happens when someone's able to sit with you when you're actually having an emotion or sharing something really personal or deep. And they're able to get over their own discomfort enough to just shut up. The pause, once people get comfortable, like they've cleared out their own emotions, that like we do in training, once they've cleared that out, then they can sit, and then that other person will say, and I've had people say this to me, I have never felt so connected or felt that this, someone held the space so well. And it's only because I've learned to stop talking.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we want to fill the space because we feel bad that they feel bad. But when that silence can happen, 2 people can sit next to each other, one's crying, ugly crying, and just allow it I think that's where the most important amount of connection can be had.
Megan Blacksmith, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, before you go, take a moment and ask yourself, what did this episode reconnect you to? Because growth doesn't come from information alone. It comes from the connections we choose to make next.